Hi, in this tutorial, we're going to be graphing linear equations using intercepts. Now, in this tutorial, you'll learn how to use a graph to identify intercepts, how to graph a linear equation in two variables using intercepts, and how to graph horizontal or vertical lines. Now, an x-intercept is the x-coordinate of a point where the graph intersects the x-axis. So it is the point where the graph intersects this x-axis. In this graph, it crosses the x-axis at point 4, 0. So this point, this coordinate, would be the x-intercept. Now the y-coordinate corresponding to an x-intercept is always 0. So in an x-intercept, this y-coordinate will always equal 0. So now the y-intercept is the y-coordinate of a point where the graph intersects the y-axis. So when it intersects this axis. So in this graph, it crosses the y-axis at point 0, 2. So this point would be the y-intercept. So this should be y-axis. Now, the x-coordinate corresponding to a y-intercept is always 0. So it'll always cross the x-axis at point 0. So let's do an example. Let's find the x and y intercepts. So the x-intercept is the point at which it crosses the x-axis. So we're going to go along the x-axis, and we're going to find the point where it crosses it. So here is where it crosses the x-axis at point -2, 0. So that's the x-intercept. So now let's find the y-intercept. It's the point at which it crosses the y-axis. So here is where it crosses the y-axis at point 0, 3. So that's the y-intercept. Now the standard form of the equation of a line is a linear equation in two variables with the form ax plus by equals c. So a graph of ax plus by equals c is a line that can be obtained using intercepts. So here's how to graph a linear equation in two variables using intercepts. So the first thing you're going to do is find the x-intercept by letting y equal 0 and then solving for x. Now you're going to find the y-intercept by letting x equal 0 and solving for y. And then next you're going to find a checkpoint, which is a third ordered pair solution. And then you're going to graph the equation by drawing a line through the 3 points. So let's do an example. Let's graph using intercepts 4x plus 3y equals 12. So the first thing we're going to do is find the x-intercept. Well, we know that the point at which a graph crosses the x-intercept is when y equals 0. So all we're going to do is substitute 0 for y. So we're going to go 4x plus 3 times 0 equals 12. So now we have 4x equals 12. Now if we divide by 4 on both sides, x equals 3. So now when we know that when y equals 0, x equals 3. So now we can plot that. We can plot that by going 3 to the right and then drawing that in. So that's 3, 0. That's our x-intercept. So now let's find the y-intercept. Now we know when a graph crosses the y-intercept, x equals 0. So now we're going to substitute 0 for x. So let's do that right here. We have 4 times 0 plus 3y equals 12. Now we have 3y equals 12, and if we divide by 3 from both sides, y equals 4. So now we can plot this. So when x equals 0 and then y equals 4, we're going to plot that by going 0 on the x-axis and then 4 up on the y-axis. So this is plot 0, 4. That's our y-axis. That's our y-intercept. So now we're going to find a third point. So we can pick any number. So what would y be if x equals 1? So let's find that out. So we're going to substitute 1 in the equation. So 4 times 1 plus 3y equals 12. So now we have 4 plus 3y equals 12. So if we subtract by 4, we get 3y equals, what is that? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 8. So now we divide 3 from both sides, and we get y equals 8 over 3, or 2 2/3. So when x is 1, y equals 2 2/3. So that would be about here. So when x is 1, y is 2 2/3. So now the last thing we're going to do is just draw a line through the 3 points. So that's the graph of 4x plus 3y equals 12. Now the graph of ax plus by equals 0 is a line that passes through the origin. Notice that the equation is equal to 0. So here's how to graph a linear equation in 2 variables that passes through the origin. The first thing you're going to do is use the origin as 1 point on the line. And then you're going to find the other 2 points by finding 2 other solutions of the equation. And then lastly, you're going to graph the equation by drawing a line through the origin and these 2 points. So let's do an example. Let's graph x plus 2y equals 0. So the first thing you're going to do is draw a point at the origin. You're going to mark the origin 0, 0. Now we're going to come up with 2 other points. So we can pick any number. So what would the graph be if x was 2, for example? So here we have our x and the y points. So what would y be if x is 2? So all we're going to do is substitute 2 for x plus 2y equals 0. So now we have 2y equals negative 2. And then if we divide both sides by 2, we get y equals negative 1. So when x is 2, y is negative 1. So now we can plot that. So when x is 2, y is negative 1. So that's our point for 2, negative 1. So now let's pick another point. So what would y be if x was negative 2? So now let's find out what would y be if x was negative 2. So all we're going to do is substitute negative 2 in the equation. So now here we have negative 2 plus 2y equals 0. So now we have 2y equals 2. And then if we divide 2 by both sides, we get y equals 1. So now when x is negative 2, y is 1. So now we're going to plot that. So when x is negative 2, y is 1. So that's the coordinate for negative 2, 1. So the last thing we're going to do is just draw a line through the 3 points. So that's the graph of x plus 2y equals 0. Now a horizontal line is the graph of y equals b, where the y-intercept is b. So a horizontal line is just the y-intercept. So let's do an example. Let's graph y equals 2. So a horizontal line is y equals b. So in this case, b is 2. So now we're just going to draw a line through 2. So that's the graph of y equals 2. Now a vertical line is the graph of x equals a, where the x-intercept is a vertical line. So let's do an example. In this graph, x equals 3. So now, all we're going to do is go to 3 on the x-axis and then draw a vertical line. So that's the graph of x equals 3. So in this tutorial, you learned how to use a graph to identify intercepts, how to graph a linear equation in 2 variables using intercepts, how to graph horizontal or vertical lines. Now try and solve problems in the Graphing Linear Equations Using Intercepts workbook. And for more help, sign up for online tutoring. And in the next tutorial, we're going to be covering slopes. Thank you.